the Manchester United fans, they walk amongst us. They live and breathe amongst us. Tommy Rooney, how's the air you're breathing?
I didn't think we'd be talking Manchester United this morning, lads.
Well,
I wouldn't have came on.
How are you, Tommy? Are you okay, son?
I didn't like the little dig at Hannibal there. Well, I actually thought that Hannibal came on last night and actually showed.
He's one of the 12 apostles.
Oh, they were disgraceful.
He was great giving the ball away for the fourth goal, wasn't he? Superb.
Well, you did just admit that you didn't see it. He actually had a bit of bite about him. He left a bit on Henderson.
I didn't see the post-match. I saw the game.
Oh, sorry. You saw the last.
He left a bit on Henderson.
I think that was good to see.
What? But and how well did he do for the fourth goal, Tommy?
Yeah, well, he messed up there, but he's only a kid, right?
Well, it's Man United.
It's
Manchester United. You can't say he's already a kid. It's Manchester United.
I've been in WhatsApp groups with Liverpool fans for a couple of years, and for the first, say, 7 or 8 years ago when Rodgers was in charge, they were very loud, they were annoying. Both teams weren't great, so you might engage a bit. Then over the last couple of years, the Liverpool fans kind of went quiet as they got close to winning, and they won. They were allowed to enjoy their win. Last night, a lot of Liverpool fans, they tried to engage in a bit of crack, bit of fun.
You were having none of
I don't think any Manchester United fan was having it. Like, it was like, oh yeah, what do you think it's going to be? 5-0, 6-0? Like, there was no other way that game was going. And I think what Fernandez said after the game summed it all up, and it's shocking. He said Liverpool had something to fight for, and we had nothing to fight for. How can you be a professional footballer and say that?
Yeah,
I don't know. Yeah. Was it lost in translation?
No, that stuck out to me as well, Tommy. That was definitely a sort of. Did he say the silent bit out loud there, Bruno Fernandes?
I mean, maybe that was fourth to fight for.
Like, exactly.
And it's also the biggest game in world football.
Never mind that though, but you're fighting for pride to play against Liverpool. Exactly, yeah, 100%.
Anyway,
pathetic.
I'm delighted for you, Tommy.
I don't really care either,
Well, you do. You see, that's the thing.
It's not like it's Mead.
Apathy is the 8th stage of grief, isn't it? It's like we no longer care about this. Yeah. I never loved you anyway. That's the post-grief, isn't it?
That's post-grief.
This love that we had and that we shared and that you were like the most important thing in my life forever and ever and ever and ever, that I dedicated everything to, that I knew everything about, that I studied, that I literally spent 100,000 hours of my 120,000 hours of life thinking about, never mattered to me in the first place.
It's
just... well, you see, it's the United fans that go to the games that I genuinely feel sorry for. I waste my time watching them. That's a choice I make. Last night, I asked myself, okay, when is it acceptable to switch this off without telling anyone? But I didn't. I was like, I can't. For the lads that are still in the stadium, I've got to leave this game on. So I sat watching it.
Mark of respect. Yeah, Manchester United at the stage of grief, they're just like knocking over the tombstone at this stage. It's just like, I want this to be...
Unless it's a zombie, that which is undead can never die. That's the bit that we get to where it's like, I don't know what that is. Anyway, Tommy, there's important matters in more local issues.
Yes, real football.
Yeah. So, what's the excitement level on the football pod like at the moment?
Well, I was really excited, and I asked Paddy Andrews at the top, and Paddy was like, meh. It was a bit of a slow start. I actually thought it was a pretty decent start to the championship weekend. Maybe that's because I was caught up in the hurling as well on Sunday. I think it was a shame that, again, I am starting to be giving it. Did you watch any of Sligo New York live? It was class. I don't know if you saw any of it, but it was on GAA Go, and it was two teams. We didn't know what to expect from New York. But it was two teams at a fairly similar level, and I really think it was a good indicator that the Tailteann Cup, if the coverage is given to it, can actually be really good this summer, because it was a cracking game of football. Just brilliant. And it was just a shame London Leitrim wasn't shown, because that was dramatic as hell. I know there's a 2-minute highlights package up, but it just doesn't give you the sense that I got listening to it on Ocean FM. Cracking game of football. And then Tyrone for Man on Saturday night, Jared. We saw some bits and pieces from the All-Ireland champions that would make you think that they're in an okay place. And then there were some moments, and you were just like, how on earth did Tyrone win the All-Ireland last year? So.
There was definitely people in the aftermath of that All-Ireland win saying this is a bad All-Ireland. Tyrone are not a good team, or not a great team, and certainly we'll see. It's early days. I do want to. There was big news overnight because in your preview, you were making the case that the players returning for Donegal allied to the suspensions that Armagh have, will make Donegal the overwhelming favourites in your view, and certainly James O'Donoghue's view, in the game against Armagh this weekend. Donegal and Armagh, two Division 1 teams who both believe that they can be the next Tyrone. No doubts about it. Internally in that camp, they both believe. Tyrone did it last year. There's no reason why we couldn't do it. We could easily, maybe just about squeak through against Kerry after extra time if we pull some shenanigans in the build-up to it. They must be thinking that, right? And then
100%.
And then overnight, the pendulum swings rapidly back in favour of Armagh, because all their players, who we thought weren't going to be able to play because of suspension, are back. Donegal didn't appeal their suspensions, so they're not getting off. They what is it? Joining in a melee, an extra man in. What's the phrase that James O'Donoghue was obsessed with?
Oh, third man in. That's what Conor McKenna got sent off for the last time. Even though I think technically he was the fourth man in, but yeah.
Something melee. What was the phrase?
Well, contributing to a melee.
That's it. Yeah, contributing to a melee, which is the buzzword du jour in GAA circles. So, Tommy, this is big news. The Armagh lads are all off.
Massive news, Ger. And it just highlights the state of the disciplinary process in the GAA. It's crazy. If you can get the right solicitor, if you can find the right loophole, and there are many loopholes, you can get away with it. Now, Donegal did not appeal the suspensions to Neil McGee and Orm McFadden-Ferry. McGee, obviously one of their most well-known defenders over the last decade, had been out injured for a lot of the league, but McFadden-Ferry has been one of the most important players, and Donegal are lacking defenders like him. Now, when they didn't appeal it, I was thinking, are they being cute here? Is that smart? Because one of the most obvious incidents in that row is, well, one of the two most obvious incidents is that Rian O'Neill definitely sort of throws a push or something. He does something with his hands. So O'Neill was one of the players cited for Armagh. But I thought Michael Murphy probably got away with some sort of a push or some sort of a contribution to the melee that was pretty obvious. It's hard to miss Michael Murphy. So I was wondering, did Donegal not appeal for fear that they might lose Murphy? Well, Donegal should have appealed, because all the Armagh lads got off, as you said. O'Neill, we heard last week, got off. That was the big news. But Aidan Nugent has been one of their stars of the league. Scored 1-6 the last day against Donegal. Has been playing as a kind of corner forward, dropping deep, adding a couple of points every game. And as James made the point in the pod this week, you're struggling to see where Armagh are going to get the scores from, especially when players like Rory Grugan are supposedly injured. Andrew Murnan, who had a massive year last year, and over the last couple of years whenever he's played, is also injured. He's a big marquee footballer. Kieran Mackin, who also got a suspension overturned, is also injured, so he's going to be missing. But Soupy Campbell, another guy you could rely on to come off the bench and kick 3 points, is back for Armagh. For me, that slightly swings the pendulum back in their favour. So I don't know if I'm officially allowed to change my prediction here. Not that my predictions matter. It's James and Paddy is why people listen to the pod. But I think I'd be changing. I don't know what. I asked James last night. He didn't tell me whether or not he was.
The humility is so admirable.
Thank you, Owen.
The practice. All the bars that Tommy has been propping up in GAA clubs the length and breadth of the country. It's not me. It's the lads. Honestly,
it's the lads. Exactly.
What sort of hit rate do you think people have with appealing these things? It feels that the only way the best way to get off, and the only way to get off a ban from a GAA match, is just to appeal it, and there is a very, very high chance of you being successful in that appeal.
Let's count up the hit rate here, right? We had Ozzie Gleeson, Waterford didn't appeal. The two Donegal boys, they didn't appeal. So those 3 red cards stood. The other red cards that I can remember over the last couple of weeks, Sean Carbine from Sligo appealed, he got off. Keith Byrne from Leitrim appealed 3 times, didn't get off. Now what happened in that game is there wasn't enough video footage to prove it either way. That was the problem in the Division 4 game. That's the reason why they couldn't get that off, apparently. There wasn't enough video footage, and that red card had been called from an umpire the far end of the pitch, who supposedly had seen an off-the-ball strike. I couldn't find out from either Sligo lads or the Leitrim lads what happened in that game. But the reason that appeal fell, that Leitrim couldn't get their the second highest score in the country off, was that there was no video evidence to do so. So we had loads of cameras on the Armagh appeal. So, I don't know how on earth they got him off, but they got him off. And, Conor McKenna, you'd be expecting, Owen, that he's going to get off too, because Joe McQuillan picked him out of that row as he was getting raked on the ground, and 2 Fermanagh boys having a go at him.
So
pretty high rate.
You guys were saying, I thought that, I actually think it's wrong. You're saying the referee in the field shouldn't make the decision; they should leave it to the aftermath. You can't do that. You can't. You've got to
Even at the end of the game, Joe?
Yeah, exactly, because the referee's assessor is assessing the referee on his performance in the moment. They're not assessing his performance. Oh, you didn't give that suspension, but they were given it afterwards. You get bonus points for that. And like, what if the game goes to extra time? Right? Do you know,
it affects it in game as well. It's not just about the suspension. What if it happens 30 minutes into the game, 50 minutes into the game? There's still a significant amount of time within that game that the punishment should be.
The rules have to be the same in the last 5 minutes as they are in the first 5 minutes. Otherwise, what's the point in the rules?
I want to put it to you this way: would it have been better if the brawl back in 1996 was dealt with at the end of the game? 5 minutes in.
I mean,
everyone's hopping off each
should have
other.
sent everybody off.
But the problem there was just a very, very bad decision. Like, it's a bad human decision. That, like, I mean, are we suddenly saying don't make the human decision because you're making a bad human decision? I appreciate that it's hard, but the referee still has to make a decision when something like that happens. Like, I think in 96, of course, it would have been better if they'd sent nobody off, because what they ended up doing was terrible. But that was a very specific incident where it was a terrible outcome.
Imagine to this day, it was like this pitch battle where like 100 people are involved and no one was sent off. The postscript would be, and not one of them was sent off.
It would have been better than.
But afterwards, if you went back, if you went back afterwards and you banned those boys, and
if Mayo weren't so flaky. If Mayo weren't so flaky, it wouldn't have mattered that they sent off different players with different talents.
But
that's what happened.
Well, you lose McHale and you're flaky as a result of that, I would say.
No. It's an inbuilt cultural thing that they have been trying to shake off before and since.
They'd only lost 89 at that point.
Well,
it wasn't fair. Like, Mayo's biggest
60
player
years.
sent off.
It's 100 years now.
There wasn't many finals.
Sorry, go on, Tommy.
No. It's all right. But like, yeah,
let's relitigate.
You're right.
Let's relitigate 96.
Yeah. I just think maybe when an incident like this, now the brawls, they're absolutely horrendous. It's pathetic. I don't know why they keep happening. I hate the headlocks. I was delighted that there was players sent off for headlocks the last day. There shouldn't be striking going on a football pitch. You know, fair enough, hard hits, whatever you want, but the melees are just pathetic.
They are pathetic.
So I would like to see them got rid of. But just the McKenna red card the other day, it just didn't make sense. He was trying to protect his teammate who was getting a beating. You know.
Yeah,
and you've got to allow for that in a way.
No, you don't. You were accidentally encouraging the law of the jungle, which encourages the melee. It absolutely encourages the melee. Now you're right. Correctly diagnosed, it's like not giving the ball up. And James O'Donoghue, not an AFL fan, cannot raise higher in my estimation than he already was, I thought. But there he goes, just that little casual dig to the AFL. Not a big fan of it. Like, come on, James, we need to say this, right? It's not a game full of skill, but I think that's right. That would fix the whole thing, and that would mostly stop most of the brawls and the melees, which are all of these kind of bullshit, toxic masculinity nonsense.
Yeah. I do think you have to allow for. I don't think you should run 50 yards to get involved and protect your teammate. But if your teammate,
if it's 1-on-1, look after yourself.
Yeah, but if it's the nearest man in, like McKenna would.
No, if it's 1-on-1, let him look after himself.
It was 2-on-1.
Then what's going to happen is the Fermanagh lad's going to get sent off because there's two of them.
But you can't
like, it's fairly obvious.
You can't leave a fella get kicked and get knees in the back and get dragged.
Red card, game over, move on. Come on, they train all year to take a few little digs. It'd be grand.
No,
they'd be grand.
I don't think you can allow.
Well, then now McKenna's going to be out for the next game because of this macho bullshit. Well, he should be. He should be by the rules.
No, he's not, because he didn't do anything. He didn't do anything.
McKenna was screwed over, I feel, as well, to be honest, on Saturday.
Okay, I know. Perhaps in this one instance. Yeah. Anyway, the games this weekend, which we haven't even talked about. Mayo Galway. Last week definitely felt like the hors d'oeuvre. We're getting some main courses here. Mayo Galway, right?
4:00.
We shouldn't read anything into the league final from Mayo's perspective.
I agree. I think, Ger, and I think I'd imagine you're of a similar thinking here. If Mayo aren't operating at 110%, if they aren't, flying on chaos, they're not there. Like, there's no point looking at them.
Galway have been a bit of kryptonite for them, not fully, but certainly Galway have not been a pushover for them generally, maybe with the exception of last year in the second half. That game was in Croker, right?
Yeah, it was, because of the wide spaces, and you could have social distancing and you could get 20,000 people in there or whatever it was.
Okay.
Tommy, you had a really good point on the podcast yesterday. I mean,
What's rare is wonderful.
Confidence going. About 2020, I'd completely forgotten about the closeness of the match between Mayo and Galway in 2020, and how Galway 100% would have been in an All-Ireland final.
Yeah.
And like, we can't forget that they'd been absolutely hockeyed by Mayo just a couple of weeks before that, and they'd still come so close. Like, that first of all backs up your point about the league final not mattering, but also that Galway still have a core of players that might, in an alternate universe that isn't too far away from reality, could have been in an All-Ireland final.
Yeah, I think we're sleeping on Galway let us down last year, Owen. I think we can all agree in the semi-final or in the Connacht final last year in that second half. There was 6 points up. And it felt
on a point of information, their best player was taken out of the game illegally, and Mayo didn't have the man sent off who should have been sent off first. Like, O'Hora should have been sent off, right?
For the slam.
Yeah, like it's an illegal move.
Probably.
And the impact it ended Galway's best player's season. Like it passed off because he ended up man of the match in the semi-final and gave a brilliant post-match speech, and like is an unbelievably likeable character, but like, he did take out the best player in the opposition, and
2, 3 to 4 points was the scoreline at that point.
Galway acquiesced. Galway were like, "Oh yeah, that's fine. You can do that to us. That's fine."
They did, and they lost Rob Finnerty in that first half, and they ended up bringing on a defensive wing forward, and I think it kind of changed their shape a lot as well in that game. And I think Galway's depth, even though, we're going to talk about it in the pod next week, there's a squad of about 26 intercounty footballers in Galway that aren't actually playing for poor choice at the minute, whether they've been dropped or they've stepped away for different reasons. So what he's been able to develop, like the amount of players that he's got there, and he did find a couple of gems during the league, is very impressive. There was a lot of footballers in Galway, a lot of decent footballers, a lot of good footballers, and players like Shane Walsh who can turn it on. Shane Walsh is not afraid of turning it on the big days. As Owen mentioned, in 2020, kicked 7 points of Galway's 13. He just lacked those around him standing up that day.
Was Comer injured that day? I don't think Comer was fit in 2020.
He wasn't fit. I think you're right. I don't think he was fully fit. He kicked a couple of points that day, but he is flying now.
Right.
Do you remember Owen McLaughlin's black card that day as Galway were bearing down on goal in injury time? Yeah, there was a lot of talk about it as well. So I actually do think that this is going to be a very, very close game. If Mayo lose it, I wouldn't rule them out of competing this year again, because they're always going to be there and thereabouts.
Oh, no.
If Galway win, it really solidifies themselves.
It could easily suit Mayo for whatever bullshit reason to go through a backdoor. It's much harder backdoor this year, obviously, than previous seasons. There's none of the cannon fodder in the early rounds, but at the same time, a little bit of off-Broadway sometimes, and a cause and all that crap that seems to stir the soul. Were you going to make one point on that?
Well, I was just going to say all 4 teams in the big games this weekend are probably going to be quarter-finalists anyway. Probably, unless it's like a heavyweight backdoor clash.
Yeah, they could easily meet each other. That's the bit. You're leaving yourself open to chance. Or hot balls, which I suppose can fix that issue. 4 minutes past 8 this morning. Tyrone won the All-Ireland because of Mayo. End of story, says Dave Cos. Danny Mack says everyone wins the All-Ireland because of Mayo. Noel Kyle says the GAA disciplinary system is a disgrace. It allows thuggery to continue. It does certainly make you think, well, there's no point, there's no fear of a red card beyond the last 15-20 minutes when my team will have to do without me. I'm going to get this back on the other side. And I don't even know if that does anything. If you get another red card, does it double? It doesn't, because that whole thing is expunged from your record. You're like free to go.
I'm not even sure. You're like the one that stood out to me always was the woodpecker punches from Diarmuid Connolly and Lee Keegan in Croke Park with 80,000 people watching, cameras on it, all caught, and he gets off 18 hours before the game. I think he gets off in the third appeal, and he ends up playing, I think, in the second half, or does he start the next day in the replay? That's the one that always stood out to me. It was like, oh my God, you can get away with anything.
Okay. Great GA names.
Tommy, you were talking about Josh Largo-Ellis on the podcast yesterday. Just got me thinking while I was driving up from Kerry. What are the greatest GA names ever? So just a very quick countdown of the top 8, just an arbitrary number of the greatest ever names that have taken to a GA pitch. In at number 8, kicking us off, is Barney Rock. Doesn't get enough credit for his name. Gets credit for winning an All-Ireland. Gets credit for his son being one of the greatest free takers of all time.
I do have to also point out that at the time when Barney Rock was playing, one of the all-time great cartoons had a character called Barney Rubble, and he was like, I mean, it was world famous to the point of like Simpsons-esque fame, and just kind of out there. And here comes Barney Rock and Barney Rubble at the same time. It's like an underappreciated, underrepresented part of his ability to be the best footballer in the country for a couple of seasons while that was happening.
100%. Doesn't get enough credit for it. So he's in at number 8. Number 7 is Hubert Darcy, the Padraig Pearce's and Roscommon cult hero. I actually don't know if he's a cult hero, but his name is Hubert Darcy, so he absolutely has to be a cult hero. Like in that Connacht club final earlier this year when their goalkeeper got black carded, Hubert went in goals. It's just such a classic Hubert thing to do. Like, I don't know him at all, but just absolutely, if your name is Hubert, you have to be doing stuff like that. Weston Shannon, they like to call him Hubert. Number 6 is Mitch Jordan, who played with the Wexford Hurlers for 13 seasons. Has Bruce Willis played a character in recent years called Mitch Jordan? I'm not one to suggest he hasn't. Number 5 is Chris Cross, a star of the Tyrone Hurlers over the last little while, a stalwart of the Nicky Rackard Cup. Number 4 is Stuart Mackenzie Smith, great name, an international man of mystery, lined out for Kildare before lining out for London. Just had to do it, had to go international with a name like that. Number 3 is Josh Largo-Ellis. I'm putting him in here at number 3, just such a great name. Doesn't need to do anything in his senior inter-county career. The goal he banged in against Tyrone at the weekend, completely unnecessary. If your name is Josh Largo-Ellis, your legacy is already in cement. He can win 10 All-Irelands and it's not going to change his legacy one bit. Number 2 is Bill Sex, Kildare's finest, captained UCD to Sigerson glory in 1985, and a little bit unlucky not to be in at number 1, to be honest, but we're a mature show here, so we're not going to put him in there. Number 1, the greatest GAA name ever, is Andrew Latouche Cosgrave. Just the best, the member of the Limerick Extended Panel in 2018, and I would say it would be a failing of John Kiley's tenure if he doesn't manage to get game time into Andrew Latouche Cosgrave in an All-Ireland final at some point over the next little while. They're going to win like 12 All-Irelands anyway. They may as well shoehorn him in and just make this thing perfect.
Off the bench for the last 5 minutes to wrap over 3 or 4 points. Everybody wonders, what's the story here?
Exactly. We need more of him, and a fantastic underage player, a very, very good senior, obviously, if he was part of the extended panel a couple of years ago as well. So he's got the skills as well as the name.
Tommy, you're the hardest working man in show business. Obviously, the football pod is out generally of a Tuesday morning at 6 a.m. But now, for your delectation of a Sunday evening, before the Sunday game comes on, the agenda's already set. What's happening?
GAA Late Night is happening,
Ooh,
boys.
Sexy.
I was delighted that Joe Malloy jumped in, thankfully, yes. Jerry, it does get a little bit raunchy with Dahi Regan on with me, but Joe Malloy jumped in for a chat the last night. I was looking. The callers were very shy. It wasn't like League of Ireland Late Night, but I do have a clip here just to give you an example. We got 5 or 6 callers in. The quality was really high, but we're looking for a few more next Sunday night. So Galway fans, Mayo fans, Donegal, Armagh, Antrim, Cavan, whatever you're having, the hurling, Clare fans, you have a chance. Let's have a listen to Aidan Foley, who jumped in towards the end of the chat last night to talk a bit of hurling with myself and Dahi. Aidan Foley, you're welcome to GAA Late Night. Do you want to have a word before we wrap up here tonight on the first edition of the show?
How are we doing, lads? Enjoying the show here tonight. It's very good. It's very good now. It's nice to have the hurling back. Said about your favourite Waterford hurler.
Yes.
I would think this year, a man, Patrick Hearn, I would think is going to have a huge influence for the Waterford senior hurling team this year. I've known the chap for years, and I think he's been a ticking time bomb waiting to explode. You know, this man has got man in the match in minor All-Ireland finals, 21 All-Ireland finals, and I think he's 26 now. He looks physically ready to go. He got 4 points today from play from wing forward, and I think he is going to be a massive addition to what Waterford are going to do this year.
Do you think you're now ready? Do you think you're ready? Could you take Limerick if you get to All-Ireland stage? Is it there? Is the depth there? Is the belief there?
Absolutely. I'm actually a Wexford man myself now, but from watching hurling and knowing a bit about Waterford, you know, to list off subs of Irla Daly, Jamie Byrne, Austin Gleeson, Pádraig Manny, Shane Bennett, none of these fellas started today. I absolutely think Waterford are here, they're ready, and I think they're not too far off winning All-Ireland now that yet.
GAA Late Night with Tommy Rooney. What time's it at?
8:30 to 9:30 on a Sunday night. Now, yeah, we're going to leave it at that. I have to say, the Cork fans were incredibly quiet last week. It was disappointing. They were bullied by Limerick. We were looking for them to come on. They're all out in their droves today with your names on YouTube. And they're complaining that Serhant O'Halpin isn't in your best GA names. They're complaining that Christy Ring isn't in there.
Great name.
And they're complaining that Jerry and Ben O'Connor weren't in there. Where were you Sunday night, lads?
Well, they'll get an opportunity. There's a few more weeks for their misery to unfold. It's the Manchester United fans' misery that we're talking about for the rest of the hour. Tommy, you've done a good job. Thanks very much.
Thanks, guys. And just a reminder that for the Twitter Spaces, all you got to do is join, listen in, and request to speak. I didn't explain that earlier on, but that's all you have to do to chat, and we can add you into the queue. Lads, thanks a million.
David
Enjoy.
Myers is up next. In the break, you're going to hear from James O'Donoghue talking about the one player he'd love to be heading into this weekend, the one player he would love to be heading into this weekend. You can listen to episode 13 of the Football Pod right now on podcast. It's in the OTB GAA feed. Just search the Football Pod. It's brought to you in partnership with AIB, proud sponsors of the GAA Senior Football Championship. Check out the hashtag #TheToughest for more.
OTB AM. This is OTB Sports Radio.
After we imploded in the league last year, I wasn't right for a long time.
Keep up to date with the latest WSL action.
Something else that I wish we did have more of in the Irish setup was that psychological support.
And the biggest interviews.
When you're an elite athlete and that's just part of who you are, to have that taken away from you is almost more destabilising than going through something like chemo.
Subscribe to the Koi Geek podcast stream on the OTB Sports app now.
I was just thinking, if I could put myself in someone's position who I'd want to be this weekend, it would be Ryan O'Donoghue, because he's played National League, right, against Tyrone, who'd be fairly defensively strong, Kerry, who have the best defensive record, Armagh, be fairly robust defensively, Donegal, Monaghan, they all have kind of defensive systems. At the moment, Galway have nothing. They don't have any sort of plan to defend against one of the top forwards in the country. So he is licking his lips at the moment. If I was going to say who could be very easily man of the match, it would be Ryan O'Donoghue. He could win it on his own if Galway don't fix the problems that we've said over the last couple of weeks. They need to get a defensive system. They need to keep their 6 defenders at home, or 5, at least 5 at all times. And that's the only way they're going to win.